CLG jungler.
All right, we are here with the victorious jungler, Smithy. Congratulations on your victory. Now, starting out, you guys are playing against a Jace AD carry. Next week, you guys are going up against FlyQuest, pretty close to you in the standings. Plus, they also use quite a lot of, oddball picks. How do you feel about reacting to this type of stuff in Champion Select?
I think playing non-meta picks is just based on your experience in the game. Ability to adapt, whether if it's a Mordekaiser AD carry or like Jace AD carry, it all depends on the players and their mentality to stay in the game.
And kind of along that vein, earlier in the season when you guys were kind of struggling, you mentioned the meta doesn't really fit the way that we like to play the game, and it has changed over the last couple patches, maybe more in your guys' favor with the AD carry pool changing and jungler pool changing a little bit. How do you feel about the current state, bringing Gragas and things like that back?
I think we're in a weird limbo right now that sometimes we're blaming picks, sometimes we're blaming the meta. I think it's just mainly for us, just like mainly excuses. I think we're just playing pretty bad sometimes, and we're trying to polish on that. So yeah, just being consistent like we were like a year ago. So yeah.
All right, well, you had actually a pretty big loss yesterday. You did recover very well today, taking down the #1 team. But in the same vein of looking at the excuses and looking at, the reasons, what was really the takeaway after reviewing your losses versus Dignitas yesterday? Maybe the biggest thing?
Probably the biggest thing is just keeping communication alive when you're behind. Usually we're ahead pretty much every early game. And then usually that one mistake snowballs into another mistake, and like we just keep bleeding that over and over. That's when we usually throw the most. So yeah, just avoiding that pretty much can solve like our mistakes. So.
All right, well, good luck for your matches upcoming, and hopefully you can have some focused practice. We're going to send it back over to the guys at the desk now.
Thank you very much, Kobe. CLG taking down #1 Cloud9 2-1 in this series. So what we talked about at the beginning of the day, for a team that looked like they were slipping, they needed to start turning it around. Getting a victory against the #1 team is definitely a way to do it.
Yeah, that's a statement win.
Yeah, exactly. So let's take a look at how they did close it out here in Game 3. Champion Select. Crazy interesting this time around. So let's dive into it, really from both teams. Ban phase. Very normal. Right as rain. This is the kind of stuff you expect to see. Okay, no surprises yet. Pick phase 1. Lulu, first pick. A lot of teams have been turning to that as priority, but this is where it gets interesting. Rengar,
especially
Jace.
the Jace, because for the most part, C9 does not prioritize it that highly. You see the Jace pick come in, and it's basically what I would say is like a raid draft, where like I don't think you see this with Impact in there. So you get to see the influence of having the more carry-oriented top laner, where now you're saying, we might flex Jace top. This isn't just a mid-Jace pick.
I was about to say, so yeah, as a coach here, you're now the coach of CLG. What kind of information do you believe you're getting here? Do you think that Jace is a flex, can go top or mid, but you're prepping for the possibility of it going mid more likely?
Right, that's what you're thinking. And then you take the Gragas on CLG. It's a great pick into both tanks and carries. It's one of the tanks that actually does fairly well in terms of setting up ganks really easily later on.
Right.
And generally has a better pre-6 matchup with a lot of these kind of carries. So if the Jace does go top, the Gragas is good.
I was going to say, it has the advantage of being a flex pick in and of itself, right? We've seen it go top lane, both in response to Maokai's and carries. Can also go to the jungle. We know that Smithy in the past has been very comfortable on that champion. So we've got flex pick 1 here, flex pick response here.
Right.
All right, now let's move to ban phase 2, see how the teams decide to play this out. Top lane focus bans across the board.
Right, and so I think you can see that Cloud9 is prepared a little bit for the pick of the Gragas flexing. So they want to get rid of the carries, potentially in a split push matchup. And they're banning tanks away. I think they know that Cloud9 has a big risk of ending up really physical damage heavy here.
But that's what this is doing, right?
So by banning away the best AP tanks, you're basically saying, all right, you're going to end up really physical damage heavy now. You almost have no way out of this. The Renekton, the Poppy are both physical damage tanks that don't help out this comp at all. So when you see the Renekton come in, the big surprise is the flex with the Poppy pick. You grab another person who can stack armor, so now you have an armor stacking front line with the Lulu between the Poppy and Gragas benefiting CLG. And Cloud9 knows that they've basically screwed the pooch on their draft. So they have to find some way to get some magic damage in here. That means flexing the Jace to the AD carry position. I think going for it was the right idea because I don't see how you beat this team comp if you pick just a standard AD carry here. You'll never get through this. So I think going with the Victor and flexing it was the right idea, but not at all what they wanted when they started the draft.
I was going to say, that's a question we might have to go and ask the players or Reaper later on exactly what the game plan was and if CLG called them on that bluff or if the whole plan from the beginning was to throw Jace in the ADC position. But let's remember, this Renekton is locked in first. The response comes here. I love the intelligent Poppy response basically saying, hey, you're all AD. We're going to put you in a situation where looking at 2 giant frontliners who can stack armor, you have to draft AP.
Right. There's really not a great jungler to take there that's going to stack a lot of armor and be a strong influence in the early game. Like, what are you going to do? Grab Rek'Sai or something? Lee Sin, not the best.
Right.
I think putting the Gragas there, while obviously not the strongest pick in the meta, is able to accomplish what you want, scaling into the mid and late game while still having some kind of influence in the early game.
Yeah, I could see maybe an Olaf pick being one of the other possible champions along with the Lulu being able to get in. But either way, it's just another champion that can stack armor to have a massive front line for CLG. So very intelligent draft here from CLG. I mean, I like the idea that Cloud9 had coming in, unfortunately called on it, and we see the game go in CLG's favor as a result. Let's dive into the game itself now to see how these two teams kind of interacted together. 15:30 into the game. This is actually a C9-1 fight, 5 for 2.
I mean, this is the kind of thing that we're always terrified about for CLG is at 15-ish minutes, are they going to get aced in their own jungle or the other team jungle? This time it's the other team jungle. Starts off with a pick attempt, but a great TPM by Ray. And then you see everyone on CLG stack up on top of this Renekton.
On an ulting Renekton.
Yep, gets his Q back up, gets a ton of damage, heals himself back up to full, not full, 300 health, so he doesn't go down to anything until a little bit later, and then it's an easy chase for the most part by Jensen. And this is kind of the concern that you normally have with CLG is like, oh my god, they got ace, game's out of control now, but they weren't actually able to grab any objectives off this because it was on the other team's jungle.
Yep.
And then because they have the better scaling team comp and that they were actually doing other things fine in the early game, they were never at such a goal deficit that they were out of the game.
Right, now recall that fight took place only a couple minutes after CLG took a fight in the Dragon River, won it, but at the same time left Ray in the top lane to build a 30 CS advantage and take solo first turret, which gave him, you know, that whopping 650 gold. So he flies into that fight off of a TP, picks up a quadra kill. You would think, I mean, if you're in solo queue, I know that Renekton, the game's over, right? That's a, you know, 2-3 item Renekton that's about to run, you know, across the board.
Yeah, and I think the way he played it actually was fairly aggressive in what you'd want to see, where he was willing to get fairly chunked out by Darshan to finish off the turret. He tries to get the solo kill. CLG has to expend some resources to collapse on him. Obviously, going down there isn't the biggest deal. You give a little bit of a shutdown gold over, but it's not that big of a deal.
And so while all the eggs are in the Ray basket now as a result of that team fight, on the flip side of things, Stixxay is the one who's going off for CLG. We talked about at the beginning of the day and the duo itself, you know, here for CLG, that the highs for that bot lane and for Stixxay in particular are quite high. He hits the extremes of either having fantastic carry performances and sometimes having dud-like performances. This one, though,
43% damage says it all. I mean,
this one's the one you want.
And this wasn't some kind of one of those games where you see where you're a Varus and neither team's fighting, you're just poking them over and over. This was like a lot of hectic team fighting where he was able to stay alive for the most part in every single team fight and clean up when he started getting the other members low. So he had a great game. He had a decent game as well, getting a lot of pickoffs. One of the critical ones being on Jensen that allowed Stixxay to not have to worry about chasing into a Victor, which is always the concern as an AD carry.
Right, big win for CLG here, pushing them to 500 in overall match record, 7-7. Now I want to talk about Cloud9. Return to our question around Ray and Impact going into this game. Why is it that they're swapping them out this late in the series? What would be the possible reasons, and what are the advantages, disadvantages to playing either of these guys? So here's a small stats comparison. Quite obviously, KDA higher for Impact, DPM slightly higher out of Ray, but that's because if you look at the champion pools, more carry potential in terms of champion picks coming out of Ray than, say, Impact. But overall unique champion difference is actually not that much. It's only a couple champions to either person's pool.
All right, it's a lot of the physical damage carry champions for Ray, where you see the Jason there, the Fiora. And one of the stats that's missing in there that's really important is the kill participation, where just prior to this game, I don't know what it was influenced by this game, but it was 65% for Impact and roughly 45% for Ray. So Ray was clearly in the split push mode where he's not TPing into fights like instantly. He's not the guy who starts the fights even. And so I think, you know, obviously this game he had a better kill participation on the Renekton, but it does raise that question of like, what are you really trying to get out of letting Ray play? Are you trying to develop a second style that if Impact's not playing well, you put in the Ray and then you start taking the Jace early and the other team has to get really scared? Because for the most part, it doesn't seem like it's really working out better for C9.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Ultimately, by the way, his KP jumped up to about 52%. So from 46% prior to this game up to 52% for Ray, but still well below what Impact is achieving with the team as well. That damage per minute stat for Ray was much lower than it was again with this Renekton, or the gold at 15 differential was actually negative for Ray at 20, now up 136. So you can see what a big game like that does to his averages. But overall, I think the main point is that, look, if you're going to run two players in a position, you clearly have to split not just game time on the stage, but scrim time. And so what is that doing to the team's ability to develop as a five-man squad when you're trying to stretch between more players? And if we use SKT as an example, there were definitive reasons why they would play EasyHoon. It's for a stylistic change and for a champion change, right? We're going to put him in anytime we really want to play Azir versus Faker, who's going to pull a more unique pick out, maybe be more aggressive and pull more focus and gold. It's not clear to me yet why exactly C9 makes the decision they make, or when they do put Ray in, why it's happening.
Yeah, it seems often like we lost a game, put Ray in, and that's that's fine if you want to flex your players around like that. And they do have a different style, definitely, and not just in terms of picks, though there is an overlap in terms of play. That kill participation being the big one.
Yep.
I mean, I remember fights from a couple weeks ago where Ray was on Fiora and just like wouldn't TP down when he could have. So they definitely take on a different kind of look for their team. This time I think Ray played pretty well. I think he kind of got screwed by the draft, and maybe that is partly his fault for how he influences how the draft plays out.
Right.
But that's really hard to comment on the outside.
And the only reason I bring this up and want to hammer it so hard is that because we're coming near the end of the split and you've got an actual race for first place. Be a different story if C9 was undefeated and 4 games ahead of TSM. No one's going to challenge them for that first seed going into playoffs. But when you're actually competing against somebody else for playoff positioning and a better road to the finals domestically, I think you should at a certain point put your best foot forward.
It's a little hard to say because you're basically saying, is P1 going to catch us and are we going to lose the first round bye? Most likely not. And then between the 3 through 6 spot, we talked about at the start of the day how much of a mess that is. You have no idea.
Really care who your opponent is.
Are you really going to get to the 6th place team or the 3rd? Like, do you know who you're really going to play? Like, it's so up in the air right now that I understand trying to develop a secondary play style, but it hasn't been the most convincing.
All right, well, C9 suffering a loss, and CLG perhaps starting a climb here at the end of the season, but ultimately that's going to do it for Series 1 of our day. That's not all the league, though, we have. Up next, we've got Immortals taking to the stage against TSM. Don't touch that browser. More North American LCS when we return.
My name is Azael. I like the taste of kale. When I go fishing, I catch whale. My gender is male. What if this is gonna be on mic check?
You're just reading Freak's rap.
Yeah.
But now
it's my rap.
Now it's his rap.
There's no proof that it's actually Freak's rap.
He legit baited contracts into it.
First flash available. Somebody heal in. It's going to be Smoothie. Running out of health. The first blood's going to come in. Donated over to who? He's auto attack. Sneaky's in a dangerous position. The flash Q auto attack comes through and sticks the kill. Jensen's going to be next. The 2 for 0 plus the Drake.
Coming. Nice. Puppy. It's all you, just all you. Oh, nice. Oh, yeah, nice.
Big stun from Ray. It's going to be the setup for Huhi. They've got the kill from Jensen. They're going to get the ace. One more hit will do it.
Karma. That's my redemption. Nice. My redemption.
I'm stunning 4.
Finish. Yes, finish. Go.
While Counter Logic Gaming going to dethrone the #1 team in North America with the match win 2-1. And CLG turning heads with the win over Cloud9.